Friends, God is a potentate, friends. You can get that in your heart. He's a potentate. He don't take dictation. He don't take counsel. He don't take advice. He's not looking to you. He's not looking to me. So don't think you can control God, manipulate God by doing things for God. By the way, you can't do anything for God. Remember what was written in Acts when Paul told the Athens church, not that God need or is worship by men's hands, for he does what? He gives life and sustain it to all. It's in him, that is God. He's in control. We live, everyone, believers and non-believers, move. You can't move a single inch without God. Your next breath isn't given to you. Promised to you, that is. It's given to you. Do you understand the difference? You don't get to say whether or not you're going to inhale again. God does. He controls your next breath. And have our being. What does that mean? Have your being. Your appointed time in your predetermined life. Who controls all that? God does. Circumcised Peter. For he who worked effectively in Peter for the apostleship for the circumcised also worked effectively in me toward the Gentiles. And when James, Cephas, being Peter, and John, who seemed to be pillars, listen, James wasn't even an apostle. He was just the Lord's brother, but he became a pillar in Jerusalem. And Peter and John allowed it. Why? Because God set him up that way. I thought Peter was the apostle to the Jews. He was, but not Jerusalem. God set up James, and there was nothing Peter can do about it. All right. Anyhow, who seemed to be pillars perceived. How did they perceive? The Spirit of God told them. You think they just came up with it on their own? Of course not. Don't work that way. The grace that had been given to me, they gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship, that we should go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcision. They desire only that we should remember the poor and the very thing I was eager to do. You see? So he goes on and he says, listen, and this is what I want to show you. When Peter had come to Antioch, where Paul was, they would be in with the Gentiles. I withstood him. Who? Peter. I challenged him to his face. Why? Because he was doing something he knew was wrong. He was to blame. He said, oh, we shouldn't judge. Well, it sure looked like Paul judged Peter to me. Yeah, he was wrong. And did Paul keep it to himself? No, Paul called that rascal out in front of everybody. For before certain men came from James, that is, Jews, he, Peter, would eat with the Gentiles. See, okay, man, he was eating food. No, you don't understand. Go back to the early chapters of Acts. What happened? When the Lord showed Peter a vision of a curtain coming down, and he says, rise, Peter, kill and eat. What did Peter say to God? Oh, no, Lord, I ain't eating that. That mess is unclean. And you the one who told me it was unclean, God. And God says, shut up, Peter. I know I told you it was unclean. Now I'm telling you I cleaned it. The same one who pronounced it unclean is now the same one saying, it's clean, eat it. Peter remembered that. But what happened? The Jews came. And what happened? But when they came, he withdrew and separated himself. Why? Why did Peter do that? Fearing those who are of the circumcision, that is Jews. Why did he do that? Because he had to go back to Jerusalem. And maybe those Jews would have told others that Peter was breaking the law. even though he wasn't under the law anymore. You see, friends, if you don't understand the background of why Peter did what he did, then you're going to make assumptions that are not going to be accurate. So that's all I mean when I say to you, you have to know the book. You have to understand that there was a transition going on. There were 2 ages. And we were splitting, I don't have the right here. They were splitting the age of law and the age of grace. Even the apostles in the early church was having a horrible time dividing those two. Because all their lives, they were told that they can't do something based on the law. You know how difficult it is to all of a sudden go from something not being permitted for 40 years and then all of a sudden it's permissible? Don't think they didn't struggle with this, friends. That's why the book of James was written, because of that struggle. So when you read the book of James, you need to understand what James is addressing. James is addressing this right here, this transition between law and grace. And his focus is on how you behave under law and under grace. It's focused on behavior. One side says works is required. The other side says works is expected and given. Big difference. Big difference. All right. So he says, hey, look, the rest of the Jews also played the hypocrite. The rest of the Jews? Yeah, the Jews that was with him, that is with Paul at the time when Peter came over. Then there were some other Jews. So that even Barnabas, think about that, folks. You got an apostle, Peter, and you have Barnabas, who I believe was called a prophet. They were both carried away with this kind of foolishness. But when I saw it, that they were not straightforward about the truth, and that's all that matters. Don't come telling me about what you think. Don't come telling me about your feelings. Don't come tell me about none of that mess. What matters? That right there. That's it, friends. The truth of the gospel. And the truth of the gospel is that Jesus Christ saves. And you have no input in it whatsoever. It's his blood that gives forgiveness of sins. That's it. It isn't tied to some prayer. It isn't tied to you repenting. It isn't tied to you going to some church. It causes God to do something in you first. What is that? God gives you a new human spirit. He takes out the heart of stone, which is dead. It's not alive, friends. It can't talk. It doesn't feel anything. Doesn't know anything. And he replaces it with a heart of flesh. It's the truth of the gospel. Now, James says, after that transition happened, Peter said, you get a divine nature, but James gives the instructions on how to live after that transaction happened. So remember, there's a difference, friends. Okay. Oh boy, we took way too long for that. Sorry.